What's up, my hunting brothers and sisters? Today we're going to go over 3 fundamental tips. They're going to help you make better and more accurate shots when you're hunting out of a saddle. So stay tuned. All right, so I want to address some shooting issues that I see people having when it comes to hunting out of a saddle, whether you're one sticking, multi-sticking, but this seems to be a common theme when hunting out of a saddle, shooting a bow. I see people missing left to right, missing low, and some mistakes I've made in the past and mistakes I've watched my friends make in the past. And so we're going to run through a couple scenarios. I'm going to point out a couple of ways that you need to be cognizant of when you're shooting out of a saddle for accuracy. So what I got here is basically I've got a set of sticks and a platform up in this tree. Platform height's probably, I'd say 16 or so feet. I mean, it's not the highest up there. And I've got a little morel target right down here at about 20 yards from the tree. And I'm going to shoot just some field points, show you a couple mistakes again that I've made and I've seen others make, and hopefully it helps you work through some of the issues you may or may not be having. So it's just good to be cognizant of them. So give me a second, I'm gonna get situated and we'll run through a couple scenarios. All right, so as I said, I want to go over a couple of the basics. There's really 3 things that I see people doing when they get in a saddle and making mistakes in how they shoot, and I'm guilty of at least one of these. But just as when you tree stand hunt, for years, if you've been hunting out of a tree stand, the difference people say is when you're shooting down, one of the mistakes people make is they actually just rotate their arm down and they end up missing high and low, and you're supposed to bend at the waist. Okay, so that is also a principle that you need to remember in a saddle, but there's more. So there's just fundamentals. It's different than shooting on the ground. So I'm going to show you straight up the one that I have made. And this one opens up a lot of errors when it comes to left to right misses, okay? And I'm shooting, obviously, this target at my strong side. And the mistake that I have made several times is when I have, say, a deer coming in, especially on my strong side, but this can be in any position, is not getting my hips square with the bow. Okay, I mean, picture yourself, if you've ever played baseball or softball and you're up to bat, you need to be perpendicular 90 degrees to the home plate so you're facing that pitcher so you can get square on the ball. It's same when you're shooting an archery target, is you want to be square to the target. You want your hips and your shoulders square to the target. If you open up, that gives you left to right misses. Okay, and so that can easily happen in a saddle situation where, let's say you had a deer coming in and right here's your ideal shooting lane, but it stops to the right or the left of it. Let's say, for example, where the target's at is where I'm gonna kill the deer, but really I'm set up 90 degrees right here, but that deer keeps moving. Okay, so I've come to full draw and I'm nice and square if the deer's over there. Okay, but what happens is now the deer comes over here. Now, if I just turn my body, but I'm really not shifting my hips or anything, and I take this shot, then I am prone to miss typically to the right, which I just did right there. Okay, so as an alternative, and again, this is just something you got to be cognizant of. I have to think about this all the time after I've done this a few times. You know, I had a doe I shot earlier this year and ended up with a liver shot, and it should have been a double lung shot. It was off 4 or 5 inches to the right. Okay, so now what I should do is, that deer's coming from over here, I'm squared up, it's moving, and as it moves, I need to basically shift my hips, if you can see this. I need to get my hips around into that deer. Okay, so now I'm not open. If I come around and get my hips into it, okay, now I'm squared up. And now when I shoot, I'm a little better left to right. So Sorry, I've been fighting a cold lately. But I'm definitely in better left to right when I do that, okay? So that's basically what you're looking for doing, is you got to get your hips square to the shot. That's the number one mistake I've made many, many, many times, okay? The next mistake I see guys making is they may get their hips square, but they're not getting their body position, their upper torso square and up vertical enough. What I mean by that is just this, and I actually was filming a buddy of mine a couple weeks ago, and he missed a doe, and he missed it low, and we were like, what's going on? And he reenacted, and I said something about, it didn't sound right when the bow went off. So I'm like, just draw your bow back again. And he was wearing a coat very similar to this in thickness. And this gets, the colder it gets, the more layers you put on, the more critical this is. We as saddle hunters tend to get in this angle position right here, okay? It's very comfortable. We think, hey, I could shoot a deer, excuse me, in this angled position. But what happens is when I come to full draw and I'm at this angled position back like this, my bottom string, if you can see that, when I'm anchored, is deep into my coat. And what happens is when it's deep into my coat, that scrubs speed off the string at the launch, and you end up missing very low, okay? That's exactly what happened to a buddy of mine. The more you get it into that coat, the more that's gonna happen. So how do we fix that? Well, to fix it is just like if we were shooting on the ground or standing on a tree stand where you're standing vertically. Now it's hard to stand vertically in a saddle with your legs because unless you're right up against a tree. So what we need to do is we need to, instead of leaning back, we need to be very cognizant, no matter where our shooting lane is, getting our torso vertical, okay? So get up here, get vertical, come to full draw. Now your string is off your coat. And now you don't miss up and down, okay? So those two are two big errors that I see quite often. The third error goes very similar to tree stand hunting. And this gets compounded, all of these get compounded the higher you get and the further your shots are. But this really gets compounded the higher you are, the steeper your angle. Is I see guys making the same mistake that tree stand hunters make, is that they come to full draw and now that deer is down here close and they just lower their bow arm instead of bending at the waist, okay? So if you bend at the waist and you get your torso vertical, okay, and you get your hips square, now you've got all three components to make a good shot. All three of them typically play on each other. Now, as you get into, say, shooting behind you, some of these components change. Like, for example, now you're straight away and you're shooting that way. If you can do it straight away, your hips are right into it. You don't need to get vertical and you don't need to lean because now you're leaned into it, okay? So, but you're gonna have to watch opening up. Now that buck comes over here, you gotta get your hips into it, and then you gotta adjust the squareness, the verticalness, and all that of your shot all the way over to where it gets to be your 90-degree and more position from your tree. You just gotta be cognizant of those three fundamental factors. And when you do that, you end up with some very nice shots, just like that. So that's it. A few tips for you guys that are saddle hunting, or girls are saddle hunting. Whether you're one sticking or multi-sticking, it doesn't matter. If you're in a saddle, these are three fundamental tips on getting you to shoot better and more consistently. And those are just mental things that you need to think about when you're hunting. This is why you need to practice in the off season out of a saddle. You need to put saddle time in and everything so it becomes muscle memory, and even then you're gonna mess it up. I mean, I admittedly did it this year, so I hope that helps you guys out. I've got a lot of other videos on saddle hunting, whether it's multi-sticks or one staking, on my channel. So start digging through the archives on this channel, and you know, you can see different topics on climbing, being safe, rope management, all that stuff, everything. So with that, as always, God bless, stay safe. I hope your deer seasons are going fantastic. And as always, it's a new day in the outdoors.